Galvenā esence ir cilvēkus jēgpilni iesaistīt reprezentatīvs, un tas ļoti svarīgi. Reprezentatīvs cilvēku grupu, ko mēs citos formātos
engaged.
neiesaistīsim.
These are representative groups of people who cannot be engaged in other or wouldn't be engaged in other formats, and they are engaged meaningfully in a way that corresponds to the society's interests. Not just the active society that we know how to, but this enables us to reach farther and to reach out to the people, to reach out to people in a randomized way, and we engage these people to shape the society and to express themselves freely through cooperations, through arriving at compromises and finding answers to difficult and complicated questions. It is also important to talk about what is a good deliberative process. So here we can outline 7 criteria that need to be met when organizing any types of deliberative processes or employing any of the methods. First of all, this is representative and inclusive. I have emphasized this several times. We try to shape microgroups that represent the society in total in the best way possible. This can be 30 people, 100 or 1,000, but when we engage statisticians and sociologists, we try to model how these groups can reflect the society and how can we benefit and how can we obtain the most representative opinion of the society to arrive at the best solution. The next thing is honesty towards participants. Being honest, we explain honestly what we expect to them, how the process is going to be, and they also provide an earnest or honest opinion. The next element is providing information for meaningful participants. So we provide the information so that people can engage in a meaningful way. The fourth element is a transparent and responsible organization. Of course, when we engage people, we want to be honest in all of these processes, and the key essence here is that this process is objective towards everyone. The fifth element is the opportunity to learn from the process, because these, if participants are engaged in a process for several days, that they can learn about how things work from the state representatives, from organizations, from others, and so on and so forth. So both the participants as well as the organizers learn. The organizers learn about the opinions of people and find out their answers to questions that we have not even thought of asking. And I think that this is one of the best things. And not only that, certainly all events are organized independently. We don't have an answer or an opinion in mind. So we are honest and we want to find the actual opinion of the participant. And the last factor or element that I already touched upon is that events are run efficiently, both financially and organized, and from the organizational perspective. And what is important here is that we try to keep a high standard in this invitation to elicit the true opinion of people. It is also important to answer the question of what facilitates the necessity for deliberative methods. Why do we hear these terms so frequently? And why has the deliberative methods wave started according to OECD? We have to look at 5 factors here that the OECD has identified in the world. First of all, economic factors. We can see and objectively witness that inequality is increasing. There's globalization and not always people are happy with it. And generally what we can see is that due to various circumstances, this creates the need to engage people and solve problems. If we see large changes and large problems, then it is important to ask people what needs to be done, how we could be done, and what according to their perspective, can be done. What are the solutions that they see? Then we see the globalization factors, as well as trust in the government, democratic institutions, and leaders. We see that democracy is decreasing, so to speak, or trust in it decreases. And when in such situations, we need to look for new ways how to become engaged. Because if we participate in elections once in 4 years, this is not enough to create enough trust that they their ideas are taken into account, or that they have the opportunity to influence their tomorrow's life. Thirdly, it is cultural factors. We can look at the society as such, its stratification, which does not facilitate the cooperation amongst the strata. And if we see this stratification, then we need to look for processes that enable to bring people together. And these deliberative processes create representative groups that come together, represent the entire society, and come up with solutions. There are large chances that we will not be able to unite the society with traditional methods, and ask the question, both, let's say, Janis from the city center and Aya from the border regions. But this enables us to bring such people together and brainstorm solutions. Fourthly, technological factors. Digital transformation, and also the polarization of social media. And again, this is divisive, so we need to look for ways how to bring people together. Fifthly, the fifth element is the environmental factors. We see these great changes that are taking place right in front of our eyes, and we need to educate these people, people about this, and we also need to look for answers to questions that maybe we haven't even thought of yet. We need to think and to ask the society what we're going to do and how do we do this. And then we have these 5 factors that have been identified by the OECD as to why we need such events that bring more people together, and this value added is much larger. So why are these deliberative processes necessary? And before I give the floor to the next speaker, I would like to talk about this and what we can obtain or achieve if we organize such events. First of all, we can create better action policy. We obtain more meaningful and more substantiated answers that we know how to do, because we have answers to questions that we have asked. And once in a while also we haven't even asked, but we have received answers to. Secondly, when we shape ideas ourselves, ideas that are accepted are more easier to it is easier to assimilate them, and then it is easier also to uptake the proposals. Thirdly, trust. Trust is important, and when we see the current crisis and the pandemic that we're going through, we clearly see that the trust is needed. So deliberative measures or events can certainly help shaping such cooperation between the political power, the society, and the citizens. Fourthly, respect. There are not too many formats that can bring people together. The society is very wide, but frequently we work with only one certain group of the society. But if we look broader and set up these representative selections or representative groups, then we can start shaping mutual respect amongst these groups. The fifth is shaping a more representative policy. We are currently working with such elements, but we need the society to be represented not just by 100 MPs, but we also need to reach out to the population. And this is a more representative way to do it. And the sixth element is this decreases the risk of corruption. This is how we create and we decrease the risk of corruption and increase the transparency. This seems obvious, but the more society we engage, the smaller our corruption risk. And the seventh element here is that the society is unfortunately quite polarized. We need to shape opportunities to bring people together and to solve difficult questions, or to bring a society together and to show them that perhaps we're not as polarized as we think, because we do have an opportunity to solve at least some problems together. And to conclude this presentation, I would like to touch upon what our deliberative process is not suitable for. So as for we cannot solve urgent problems with deliberative processes, because we have to understand that such representative measures require time. So if you need a solution by the end of the week, then this will not be possible to create the deliberative measure. No. We need they don't work only in case of symbolic representation. Also, these methods don't work for national security matters, because they're not provided for discussion among all. Also, for various binary matters where only two answers, mutually exclusive answers are possible. And thirdly, when we think about an inclusive country, state, and adopting collective decisions, we need to think about the included groups. And I would like to complete my presentation on the note of as follows. I would encourage you to look up this very exhaustive and a very useful book on innovative citizen participation, and you will find out a lot more. I hope I did not take up too much time. Iveta, now the floor is yours, and thank you for the time dedicated to me. Thank you, Cynthia, for the exhaustive presentation, which touched upon the most important aspects of deliberative methods. And I see that several state institutions that are considering such measures are already asking questions, and they are partially starting the discussion that we are planning to have in a couple of moments. Since the beginning of our event was delayed, maybe we could start and open the discussion, and we could look at the case studies of particular countries. Now I would like to switch to English, because the next part of this event is going to take place in French and English. Please open the globe icon at the bottom of the screen, and this is where you can select a channel, and you will be able thus to listen to the interpretation.
This part of the discussion is going to take place in two languages, in English and French. And also, dear participants, if you feel that you would benefit from a discussion that is only that takes place only in language in which you feel most comfortable with, then please click on Zoom webinar in this bottom part of this screen on interpretation, and there you will be able to select English or French as interpretation languages. Good news is that on this particular panel, everyone understands both languages, so everyone is free to use the one in which they feel the most comfortable. For myself, I will speak in English because we expect that there might be some technical problems, and it's important the technical teams understands me as rapidly as possible. And I see already that we have 3 wonderful speakers who have all joined us, and also all the interpreters, all 5 of them are also here, so everything should run smoothly. And let me introduce the first speaker. The first speaker is Lorraine Kavanagh, who is representative of the Secretariat of Citizens Assembly on Gender Equality in Ireland. And recently we have heard quite a lot about Irish experiments in deliberative democracy that even led to changes and referendum on regarding rights to abortion quite recently. But as we will hear, it's not the only citizens assemblies that has taken place in Ireland, and we have a very knowledgeable person who will tell us about the organization of such events and also the reasons for choosing this particular method of citizen engagement. So Lorraine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Iveta. So I'm going to start my presentation. So good afternoon, everybody. Can you see that okay?
Perfectly.
Great. Okay, so first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to share Ireland's deliberative democracy experience with you. So just to begin, Ireland has had 3 deliberative democracy initiatives over the last 9 years. The first was called the Convention on the Constitution in 2013 and 2014. That was very successful, and the subsequent Citizens Assembly then ran from 2016 to 2018. And then the most recent Citizens Assembly on Gender Equality began its work last January of 2020 and finished in April of this year. So just to point out that all 3 are separate entities. So they each have their own set of members. They had their own independent chair, and they also had their own separate secretariat. So for both the convention and the first Citizens Assembly, there was a commitment made in the government of the day's programme for government. For example, in 2016, before the Citizens Assembly, the programme for a partnership government committed to the establishment of a Citizens Assembly to discuss a range of constitutional and societal issues. So there was a recognition by government of the value of deliberative democracy as a way of getting citizens' views on complex issues affecting Irish society. All 3 resolution or initiatives were established by way of a resolution agreed by both houses of the Oireachtas. Now you'll hear me refer frequently to the Oireachtas, which is the Irish Parliament. It's made up of a lower and an upper house called the Dáil and the Seanad. So all 3 resolutions were passed by the Oireachtas. So there was general support for the initiative across the political parties. So if we look at the Convention on the Constitution, there were 100 members. There were 66 citizen members who were all eligible to vote in a referendum and were randomly selected to be broadly representative of Irish society. There were also 33 politicians who were put forward by their parties. And then there was the independent chair. So the convention considered 10 matters in total. For the most part, these related to Ireland's constitution. In total, the members made 38 recommendations to the Oireachtas. So this led to a series of referenda, including providing for same-sex marriage in the Irish constitution. A majority of 62.1% of voters voted in favour of same-sex marriage, bringing about marriage equality in Ireland, which was a huge societal change. So then moving on to the next, the Citizens Assembly, it also had 100 members. So it was made up of an independent chair, and this time it's 99 citizens. So politicians did not participate on this occasion. The citizens were randomly selected, and broadly representative Irish society was reflected in the census, so stratified on the basis of age, gender, geographic location, and socioeconomic background. The Assembly considered 5 topics that were set out in the resolution, including a topic on climate change, ageing population, and abortion. So further to the recommendations made by the Citizens Assembly to the Oireachtas, A referendum on removing the constitutional ban on abortion was held in May 2018. The turnout for this referendum was one of the highest ever recorded for a referendum in Ireland. So it really generated a huge amount of interest in voters. Really so over 66%, you can see 66.4% of voters voted in the referendum in favor of removing the ban. And this very closely mirrored the votes by the Assembly, where 64% of the members voted in favor of removal. So that was a real kind of, it really showed that the sample of 100 citizens did actually quite mirror, or certainly was a good representation of what the general population felt about this issue. So really, like with those two examples, both the convention and the Citizens' Assembly were instrumental in paving the way for the resolution of these sensitive and at times contentious issues. They both played a key role in stimulating debate in Ireland around marriage equality and abortion, and generating support for constitutional change on both issues. And finally, the Citizens' Assembly on Gender Equality. This assembly followed the same structure as the previous assembly in terms of its membership. The Oireachtas resolution setting up the Citizens' Assembly included quite a detailed list of issues that the assembly was asked to consider around the topic of gender equality. And these broadly fall into the four headings that you see on your screen. The assembly itself decided to add domestic, sexual and gender-based violence to its mandate, given the importance of this topic as a gender equality issue. And unfortunately, it was something that did rear its head during COVID. So just then to quickly give you an overview of the meeting structures. So the meeting took place in a hotel outside Dublin, with a full day meeting on Saturday and a half day on Sunday. The programme was a mixture of presentations from academics and legal experts, advocacy groups, and from people who were sharing their own personal experience and their own personal stories. So the presentations were interspersed then with roundtable discussions, followed by feedback sessions where each group would share their thoughts or the highlights of their discussion with the other members. So you can see from the photo here, this is a photo of our in-person meeting in February 2020, and the members were divided into groups, so there were literally round tables, and each table had a facilitator and a note taker. And the public part of this meeting was live streamed. So actually, before we even started our meeting, we launched a public consultation process where we invited submissions from the general public, from NGOs and interest groups. And we engaged an academic to analyze these submissions, and she presented an overview of the submissions to the members at their meetings, which they found extremely helpful. An expert advisory group comprised of experts in the field of gender equality and deliberative democracy supported the chair and secretary in choosing speakers and developing the meetings programs. As well, a steering group made up of the members, some members of the assembly, supported the planning of the meetings and also helped us with the organisation issues more generally. And then finally, we engaged a research fellow to monitor and analyse the deliberative quality of the assembly. We were able to modify arrangements as required as the process evolved. So we had two meetings, including our inaugural meeting, and then we had 4 more scheduled when COVID hit. So we obviously couldn't meet in person any longer. So we had to make the decision whether we would sit it out and wait until we were able to meet again in person, or to move our meetings online. So we asked the members. So a large majority of them voted to move online. And so the decision was made to move online. So we began our preparations. So our preparations including speaking to colleagues in other countries who had moved their assemblies online, such as in Australia, England, and Scotland. We also spoke to online education specialists here in Ireland about the best way to share information in the new online format. We also had to help the members, of course, prepare for their move online, and this included providing training on using Zoom. We ran a pilot event in July to test the waters and to give the members a feel of how meeting online would work. The meeting went really well and we got really very positive feedback. So we then looked at how we were going to organize the meetings, and obviously we had to change the format. First of all, online meetings are much more tiring than meeting in person, and after consulting the members and asking them, well, how long could they manage to attend an online meeting, we decided that the meetings would be only Saturday, and they would be for 4, maybe 5 hours sometimes, with sessions split between the morning and the afternoon, and then lots of breaks as well in between. And then to maximize the time for discussion, we pre-recorded all our presentations and panel discussions and personal experiences and sent them in advance of the meetings for the members to watch and to reflect on. The presentations were shorter. We tried to keep them under 15 minutes, some under 10. But as that any longer, you lose your audience. So there is an image we're all very familiar with. So it's a screen grab of one of our online meetings. So the Assembly had 7 online meetings in total. So from October 2020 to April 2021, and we held extra evening sessions just for members to ask questions to the chair and raise any issues in relation to the process that they may have had opportunities to do so in person, but the online format just didn't really have the same maneuverability for that. The voting was carried out online using procured specialist secure software, unlike the previous assemblies, which had a voting booth set up for both members to vote. And we also had returning officers monitoring the integrity of the voting, which was really important for the citizens. So for the outcome of the Assembly, the final report was submitted to the Oireachtas at the beginning of June this year. There were 45 recommendations, 3 of which were in relation to constitutional change. A joint committee of the Houses of the Oireachtas is being set up at the moment, and it will consider all the recommendations, and this committee will report back to the Houses. And in addition, the government has also committed to responding to the recommendations in the Oireachtas. And if it accepts some or all of them, it'll indicate the time frame it envisages for the holding of any related referendum. So finally, if you're interested in finding out more, you can consult our website, which has all the presentations, videos, and recorded public proceedings, as well as the final report and recommendations. There's a really lovely video on our homepage, which is about 5 minutes long, and I'd encourage you, if you have the time, to watch it. It's with some members who talk about their experience, and it really gives you a flavour of their journey, how hard they worked, how committed they were, and just generally their aspirations for Ireland.
Thank you so much, Lorraine. It was a wonderful presentation, and also so many things to learn for Latvia. And I'm looking at what's happening in chat, and there are so many questions. And one question that I would like to address to you specifically is that there are some participants who expressed doubt whether randomly selected citizens are capable of sustaining their interest in the topic that is under discussion, and whether the recommendations they come up with eventually really do make sense, and are they valuable, and what do experts think on those recommendations that have been chosen or worked upon by regular citizens who don't really have any special knowledge in the subject matter? How could you respond to that?
Okay, well, the first question in relation to the citizens randomly selected, keeping their interest, certainly we were really impressed with the fact that they were so committed and so interested and so engaged in the whole process. And the thing about this, the topic that we did, the citizens, gender equality, I mean, it affects everybody. Particularly, you saw the list of topics that the Citizens Assembly was asked to consider. And one would say is in terms of care, and everybody is either a carer, whether it's a grandparent or a child, or at some stage in their life will be in the situation of either being a carer or being cared for. So a lot of the stuff that we looked at was very relevant to everybody's lives. So I think that really helped in engaging the members. And then in terms of, the members weren't asked to go into a huge amount of details in terms of policy. They really were just talking about what they felt was right for Irish society. And we had the expert advisory group who did guide the process, and really the chair just directed any citizens away from really going into a lot of the detail. So it wasn't the fact that they were going into issues or areas that they weren't able to, because they didn't know enough about. And then there was kind of a self-regulation among the groups. So if you did have somebody saying, oh, I think that the state should pay for X, Y, and Z, you also, on the other hand, had somebody else saying, well, hang on here, who's going to pay for this? So there was a lot of pragmatism. So, it was like, I really think that you can never underestimate the ability of your fellow citizens to kind of look at in a practical way at the various issues. And of course, we had experts and advocacy groups who were giving their opinions, which were generally, they were pretty rational as well. So the guidance was there the whole time.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for this the inspiring response. It's just almost no one in the audience has any experience in organizing events like this, but many would like to try, so they sort of want to understand what to expect. So thank you so much for your story, and also for the wonderful Irish experience. Okay. Then maybe let us proceed from Lorraine to Antoine. Antoine Vergne is co-director of Mission Publiques from France. And his organization organizes many deliberative events. And currently, Mission Publiques is also one of the co-organizers of probably the most ambitious public discussion ever having taken place, namely transnational European panels that have to deal with 24 different languages. And you already during this meeting probably understand that it's a very challenging thing to organize translation even for 3 languages, but in context of transnational European panelists, it's about 24 different languages, citizens from across European Union trying to come up with recommendations on the future of Europe. So Antoine, maybe you could tell us shortly, especially those people in the audience who would like to organize their own deliberative events, about some of your organization's experience on doing just that in France or internationally. You can speak in French because at the moment it seems that we have sorted out the translation. Everything should run smoothly.
Okay. Bonjour tout le monde. Merci.
Hello, everybody. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for having invited me. I'm very glad to be with you. I'm very glad to speak about my experience. I'm very happy. And for today, I am going to speak about our lessons learned during 20 years. I started my work here in 2001 in our organization, and since then I have been learning, and I'm going to share with you some of my lessons. And I would like to put here some questions
about what's happening and what's coming up in the future. So on what I have learned so far is that
we must go on.
I have been working for about
since
10 years.
Many years. I have been studying these issues and
a question linked to a random draw.
We have been speaking about different issues
can be
for our citizens, and I can tell you that it's a success. Everything's good, and I'm going to tell you how we managed to organize.
Why does it work? It works because it's a way of, it's a kind of history. It's a chemistry that we put in a place frame which is full of ingredients which are very interesting. First of all, it's the cognitive diversity. You know very well that when we put about 10 people in one pool, in one room, and who have been in the same university and who have been through the same journey, then they have less cognitive diversity in their opinions and their visions than people who are different and who come from different backgrounds. So this is what we call also the wisdom of fools, the wisdom of crowds. This gives us the opinion of the number of people who can really talk to us about the reality of things rather than trying to interrogate a number of experts. So let's ask the person to weight a basket let's say in a particular fair. Each person can tell you that it's going to weight about 50 kgs, and the one who's going to have that one, they will win. But if you make an average of all the different opinions, you come up with the same average, which is 30 kgs. Exactly what we try to activate by putting people who are cognitive diversity. A second point here, which is very important, is that we give them the luxury of time. Because if we have a group of citizens, then they are not part of a mandate. They don't have to be in regular meetings. Meanwhile, the decision-making politicians are in a cycle where they have to, by the end of the mandate, and where they have to realize a number of results because of simply their profession and their work to do. So deliberate citizens do not have particular implementation. They might have an objective and a vision which is more on the long run. They're also exposed to a process of a cognitive process of learning, which is very much concentrated. I always meet experts who will conduct a number of these deliberate meetings, and they have informed us that they have received so much information from citizens than the ones I have gained through 4 years of study with my peers. So the fact that there are plenty of opinions and where there's a concentration of knowledge and know-how in one room. Again, the common ingredient is the fact that we put them all in a process where we ask them to do a number of compromises based on a number of values. So this allows them to reconnect to what the policy or what the politics is telling us to do, which is the process of distributing of rare distribution. We put them in a particular row, and this gives us really interesting results. The second thing that I learned is that we can definitely try to put it on a scale, so it's not limited on the local scale. Since a long time, we have been the deliberative democracy. It's good in cities, but it's more complicated. But we talk about the national level or the international level. We have proved that it's not true. So in fact, have conducted a project with the European Union with about 800 citizens from about 4 member countries, 24 for recommendations and the future of the people, and it works perfectly. So there are many challenges in terms of languages, and also it's very complex, but it's working perfectly. We have also worked in this office in 2017 and 2020, national citizen dialogue about the future of the internet, with questions about the uses of data and artificial intelligence, and this worked as well. So it's not always a question of scale, it's also a question of the methodologies used. So this is exactly what I learned. It's about the fact that deliberative expression requires to follow a number of criteria of quality. So it's very important to think about criteria of quality for a particular process. And this is opposite to the impact of the fashion impact. There was something which was kind of on fashion, which is about participation budgeting, and then in 2010 we had another one which is about citizen forum. Today we have citizen assemblies. So what's important to think about this? These are in fact methods that allow to advance the diffusion of events, but it's very important to ask the following opposite question: what method should I use? Instead of asking what method should I use, I should think about why do I need deliberate democracy? So as a decision-making person or as a politician, it's not always deputies or people who are in the administration. It could be also people who are part of civil society in the private sector as well. So take internet, for instance. Today we have a number of actors and stakeholders who are private. We can clearly talk about them like Google and Facebook, who are taking decisions that can impact the lives of many citizens. So when I am a decision-making politician, what time do I need to use deliberate process to make a decision? So what are the criteria? The first criteria is that if we want to be able to have a process which is successful, we need to look for inclusion. We have to look for citizens who are not used to be part of political discussions. And here, in this case, run and draw is the best because we can't really look for people who are not interested by the problem. It's also very important to think about the fact that may exist and hear the divergent opinions about a particular subject. It is at this moment that we will have the output of the different stakeholders and experts as well with different opinions. In about 3 years ago, we had a process of vaccination about whether or not in France vaccination should become mandatory for certain diseases. And here, what was important for us is to have experts who can say yes, and also groups from the civil society who can just simply say no, we don't want mandatory vaccination. It's exactly like this that we can get certain quality to our processes. So first of all, we want to recapitulate inclusion of people, inclusion of opinion. The third ingredient here is about relevance. I have to adopt a certain methodologies that are adapted to my subject. If I have a particular subject that I want to solve or a problem that I want to solve with my citizens because there are certain bottlenecks in my political system, this is exactly what we have seen in the Citizens Assembly in Ireland. So here in this case, it helps enormously because it can help to develop something very pertinent. Now, also, there's another criteria, which is about deliberation, which is at the heart of everything. So here it means that we have to start first by listening to different opinions from the group, and this is a moment of information about the particular group, and also an information that can be brought from outside about a particular subject. And this is exactly what we said. So we need a certain expertise to bring the information. Once we had this moment of information, once the participants are good, then we can move on to what we call a dialogue to try to understand what are the different positions and how do they have a common place. So we call it a common ground in English. I don't know how to say it in French, but it's about coming to consensus or a common ground where we can try to bring about a number of decisions, find the moment of the deliberation, a moment where we can do a number of propositions and where we talk about aggregations. So this has to be a transparent process, and we have to think about the governance deliberate model, who takes this decision. And the experience on my side that we need a model of governance where the different stakeholders are included, because it allows, following that, have a number of recommendations that may apply to the different stakeholders who are engaged in the governance and the preparation of the mandate, and thus it gives a lot of legitimacy to it. So this is about my learning outcomes. I don't know how much time I still have left. 2 minutes remaining, the speaker. So now what's coming for the future? What I see for the future is that it's very important to have an infrastructure. And infrastructure, we are almost close to it. So one very important point here is, is there any register for inhabitants in Germany? So this is a question of infrastructure for the random draw and infrastructure also of the constitution. So I would like to let Mr. to speak about it, about institutional infrastructure in France. We are very happy in France. And it's available in all countries, and about these institutions that have been working on deliberative processes. We need infrastructure. We need also new tools to integrate this by trying to work on what's really live without trying to integrate this living system. So if we don't have it, then of course we have to think about temporary horizon. Once again, there's something very important which we were not able to succeed on, which is to think about the next generation. So perhaps this vision, which is coming from India, where we talk about a particular action and where we think about what's happening in one particular generation, is something that we lost in our political systems for a while now. And the deliberate processes is something that we have to definitely work on. The last point here is that we need a culture of deliberation, and we will try to go on it slowly and surely, but I think that at the end it will make a difference. So why do I speak today about culture? Because it's more important than institutionalizing processes. So as a decision-making person, I have the reflex of saying that I have a problem here, and this requires me to do a report of expertise, and also why not deliberation, and also why not a question back. So in this case, I can definitely look forward to use opinion poll or any of the following methodology, or the previous methodologies that I mentioned. And you know very well that I'm a big supporter to this, and I think that it's a very good thing to do further on it, because it helps not keep this public decision making. It helps people to take decisions. It's a tool that helps to take decisions in a very...
The former Minister of Education and current Member of Parliament, Shuplinska, is asking a question on remuneration for participants during those deliberative events. She is wondering whether it's not problematic, whether societies in different countries, in your case in France, understand the reasons for that those people who are selected randomly need to be remunerated for their work in the public interest. What do you think about this? Is it a problematic thing?
Donc, merci pour la question.
Thank you for your question. I think that this is a specific question. We have two schools. First of all, we have the School of Athens, and this is a separate tradition, and it is about this small coin which was given to citizens for their participation. And it was as a kind of compensation for their days off dedicated to citizens' work. Nowadays, parliamentaries, our deputies also receive their salaries as citizens. So this, according to this school, we say that this is, well, this is okay. But we have another vision, another school, about bourgeoisie of 28th century. And they say that the citizens' work must be done on only on goodwill basis, and they should receive no salary. But in reality, we can see that these two realities are a bit mixed. If we speak about rich people, rich citizens, they can afford themselves such reality. But if we speak about middle classes, about poor people, the situation is quite different. But rich people think that it is good to provide compensation, but in reality, when we provide such compensation, we can see this diversity between groups. So we like to support these two schools.
Okay, thank you so much for those very useful recommendations on what to take into account when organizing these events, including this problematic aspect that you mentioned that is not really solved regarding the remuneration for participants. But I would agree that it's an important thing to have. Otherwise, it's very hard to get a representative sample of population to participate. We are organizing a deliberative event next Saturday together with Ministry of Health, and remunerating participants is one way, maybe the only way in Latvia how to ensure representativeness. Okay, maybe let's go to our last participant, and I'm extremely happy to welcome Patrick Deronzier, who is the director of the National Commission on Public Debate in France, which is, I think, an institution that does not really exist in any other country, and that was already mentioned by Antoine regarding organizing large or helping to organize large debates on gigantic infrastructure projects that are organized in France. And Antoine, at first I would like to ask you, what's the reason for such a specific commission? Why does it exist? What is its main mission? So the floor is yours. You can share your presentation, or you can just answer the question on the mission of your organization, institution.
Merci beaucoup, Iveta. Bonjour.
Thank you very much. I would like to welcome everybody. I'm very happy to take part in this debate, and thank you very much for the organizers. I would like to point out that I work in National Commission for Public Debate, and we were inspired by Canadian experience and also by Italian experience to create such a specific national commission. We can see that such a structure does not exist in many countries, but if I will ask your question, our institution was created in 1995, and this is really a big infrastructure. We thought at the beginning about our transport systems, and we would like to put questions to our authorities, and that was the main mission for the foundation of our commission. This structure is quite independent, and we have to guarantee the right for our citizens to take part in the public debate on environmental issues. I would like to show you my presentation. First of all, to clarify some organizational issues as for our commissions. So, can you see my screen? Yes, I'm going to share my screen.
The presentation very well.
Ok, ça marche toujours. Là, j'ai tourné les slides, ça suit, ça marche.
Oui.
Ça fonctionne très bien.
You can see my slides. Very good. I'm going to recall that independent the administrative authority guarantees individual right, and the members are appointed for the term of 5 years, and they must not be influenced by governments, and guarantees individual right for every citizen to be informed and participate in public debates on environmental issues. Our mission is not very well known for all of you, perhaps, but our main mission is environment protection. This is international concept for the protection of environment. We speak about Rio Convention and a series of other international conventions on environmental issues. In France, we have our own processes of public participation, and these processes can start at a bit late period of our project's evaluation. And in theory, these decisions are not all the time taken in good time. In France, we have a different structure. Our institution launches its processes a bit in advance before our programs and processes started. So our citizens have a possibility to speak, to debate before any processes have started. Such procedures are mandatory, and our institution provides support for debates, and all the projects do not have a character which refers to our mission, but we try to take initiative in advance. In France, we have our own reality, and a person has the right to have access to information concerning environment in possession of public authorities, and to take part in public decisions, in public debates, having impact on environmental issues. So, National Commission for Public Debates has this right to start its activities very early, at a very early stage. So how can we use this right? First of all, to debate about the project relevance. Is such or such project useful for the society and the protection of the environment? Also, we speak about conditions for the implementation of such or such project, how we can realize such or such particular project. Third, we also speak about characteristics of the different projects. We speak about environmental impacts, about the way to prevent and mitigate the impacts and compensate them. And finally, we allow information and participation of the public all along the project realization. We check all along the process of implementation of projects. And so we can assure such citizens' participation. Principles of the National Commission for Public Debate. How do we work? I would like to point out different stages. How Antoine Vergne has spoken already about such stages of citizens' participation. First of all, it's independence. Regarding any constituent body, every citizen has the right to participate in the work of such authority, and the independence of our body, National Commission for Public Debate, is a very important issue. So we are an independent body in environmental debate. Second, it's neutrality regarding the project. We try to assure this principle of our work, and everywhere where we intervene, we try to assure this principle. Third, neutrality is a very good quality, and doesn't matter if such a such project is good or not. We also think that it's very important for public debate to share our opinions. Sometimes we have our votes, elections, but we try to seek our opinions, to analyze the position of our citizens and to involve them in our debates. Also, we speak very often about equality. It's very important for the implementation of our projects. Sometimes we have some people who are not accustomed to speak freely in public. And now I would like to point out about our deliberative processes. National Commission for Public Debate has a number of deliberative processes. It's a bit demoded, but especially after the crises we had, we think about our mode of work, but we try to involve more and more persons in our debates, up to 45 persons. For example, to debate about our questions of agricultural policy. Also, we think that our debates and discussions must be adopted to technical reality, and we must think about involving experts, academicians, to provide expertise for our members, our citizens during debates. It's very important also. Also, we think about drawing lots and choosing our members and citizens. We have about 3 or 5 meetings to think about deliberative processes. This is a very useful tool, and sometimes we have lots of conflicts during our debate. Sometimes our discussions are blocked by different opinions, but in deliberative processes the situation comes more smoothly. We have talked about this before today, but now I would like to point out that National Commission for Public Debate would like to improve in this direction, because we have other interested parties in this field in our country. So we can see now very clearly that the logic of deliberative processes cannot always point out diversity and equality during panel discussions. Of course, we cannot avoid the issue of paying salaries, compensations for participation, but we cannot put on public debate every issue. And how can we take into account every opinion? during debates. Sometimes we propose that such processes should be accompanied by other tools, other initiatives, which will bring us more diversity, more equality. And so we will debate, for example, online in a more large framework to make our panel discussions more diverse, more objective and independent. Also, we try to think about different tools for deliberative processes. How can we have a consensus? For example, we know about that, but we think that we must find a solution between consensus and deliberative processes. Our panel discussions are more or less dedicated to the issues of environmental issues. Also, we think about propositions on about propositions which we saw on our online in the framework of our online discussions. And so how can we enlarge our public life, our public debates? And if to finalize, I would like to speak about the processes of deliberative democracy. I would like to speak on different concerning different projects. And first of all, it's very important to clarify our missions, our goals. How can we arrive to our decisions? We must think about that at the very beginning. We must take into account all the opinions, all the points of views. But at the same time, we must think about everything that was told during the debates. Also, we should include these aspects to our pilot committees or other expert commissions. Our citizens could help us at this stage too. And also, we would like to propose that our committees could follow up decisions taken so that we can assure the implementation of decisions and recommendations approved. Perhaps we should dedicate a group of citizens who will assume this task. It's also important to think about these tools and to assure high quality of such work procedures. And of course, we must ensure good following up stage. Upon conclusion of our debates, we must think about the reasons why such a decision was approved or not.
Patrick, thank you so much. It's just like a very useful overview of how well-structured deliberation process should take place on these large infrastructure projects and very technical issues. And you demonstrated very well that people are perfectly capable of working on those highly complicated, sometimes even technical issues in a deliberative manner if the whole process is structured in the way that allows them to do so. We are very much running out of time. We will finish this event in 3 minutes. I just wanted to ask to participants a yes or no kind of question. All three of you, Patrick, Lorraine, and Antoine. Do you believe that the future of of democracy is in deliberative events? randomly selected citizens coming together in order to produce deep recommendations on some challenging issue for society. I understand that it's a very hard to answer with yes or no, but as the time is so pressing, I would ask you to do that. Let's start with Lorraine. Do you believe that the future of democracy is in deliberation?
I definitely think it is something that is added value that countries can take on board for issues that are complex, that as Antoine said, that there's blockages in the political system. And so my answer would be yes.
Great, thank you, Lorraine. Antoine, what do you think?
I think yes, and for two reasons. First, because we are almost at a tipping point. So we have gathered like 50 years of experience with those formats. And we see that now they are known and they are picked up, and they are finding their way through the institutional design. So, for example, for me, for France, the Climate Assembly was very interesting to see that at once it became a very important place of power and struggle for different, for all actors in France to be there, and that's very interesting. So I think yes. Now the question is how fast will it be? Is it something that will take 200 years, like the Parliament in England? Will it take 50 more years, or how long? That's the open question. But I think they are here to stay because they indeed answer. They are capable of answering questions in a complex society, and they are fit for the setting of the 21st century. They do the job.
Thank you. And Patrick, are you a believer in deliberative democracy? Yes or no?
Yes, sure. Yes, sure. No, it's a very interesting tool to use, and it has advantages that other tools do not have. The point of view, as you understood, of the National Commission for Public Debate is to mix this tool with other complementary tools of participation to make sure that there's no holes, I would say, in the way we hear the public observations.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much, all the three wonderful, excellent experts that took part in today's event. Thank you, Veronique. Let me remind you that this event has been organized by Providus with support from a French Institute, French Embassy, British Council, and also Active Citizens Fund. Thank you, interpreters. I apologize for your challenges. And thank you also to everyone who was listening to us. The recording of this event will be available on the website of Providus. And I hope that after this event, we will see explosion of deliberative events happening in Latvia during the next few years. So thank you, and let's end this event.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Merci.